What's up, everybody? I'm David Hain, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 18 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. If you'd like to contact me regarding speaking engagements, addiction coaching or consulting, or to utilize the From A to D curriculum and podcasts in your location, please go on my website, www.fromatod.org, and click on the contact page. I'd like to give a shout out to the new listeners following us from the country of Italy. That brings our total listeners to 16 countries. I'd also like to give a big shout out to listeners in 3 more cities: Cordova, Tennessee, Zonpol, Netherlands, and Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Thanks for listening. If you have a few minutes, share this with your friends and go on to Apple Podcasts to rate us 5 stars and review us. That will help more people find this podcast and enjoy it as you do. Thanks. This episode is entitled Loneliness Fuels Addiction, which fuels deeper loneliness. Let's start out by looking at what is loneliness. It's a feeling of being alone or isolated, feeling empty inside, feeling unwanted, unseen, or unheard. Here's some quotes that addicts have said. Everyone gets tired of me at some point, then eventually they'll leave. They all do. No, I may not be physically alone, but emotionally there's no one in sight. It hurts when you realize you aren't as important to someone as you thought you were. Can you hear it? Can you feel their pain in those words? Can you feel the emptiness of being unwanted? Mother Teresa is quoted as saying, "Loneliness and the feeling of being unwanted is the most terrible poverty." She saw loneliness as a hunger for love and a hunger for God. If we have a physical disease, we can go to a doctor and get medicine to take the symptoms away and cure the disease. What doctor can we go to for loneliness and the feeling of being unwanted? The only cure for these feelings is love. But often our heart is so wounded, our skin is so hardened from years of loneliness and addiction that we don't have the emotions or the strength to recognize or receive love when it comes our way. American novelist Edward Lee wrote, "Loneliness is akin to dust on your skin, becoming thicker, heavier with every empty day, until your eyes are sealed, and your lungs are full, and your heart ceases to beat in unison with the rotations of the world." Shaw. The dust of years of addiction invades every part of our body until we're not only convinced that we don't fit in our family anymore, but we can't find any place that we feel we truly belong in the world. Our loneliness is a total lack of quality of connection or intimacy. Emotional loneliness can be the lack of one significant person in our life. Just one person who loves us, understands us, and accepts us. This is a hunger and pain that our addiction at best only numbs for a short time. It's a pain that can only be soothed by unconditional love. And our search for unconditional love is only complicated by our search to be able to love ourselves again. Irish poet Brendan Behan summed up this internal battle of loneliness. He said, At the innermost core of all loneliness is a deep and powerful yearning for union with one's lost self. When I say loneliness fuels addiction, which fuels deeper addiction, I'm not talking about the typical cycle of addiction. I'm talking about a vicious whirlpool. It can start with feeling socially isolated from normal everyday life, being around people, but emotionally isolated, always the outsider, never heard, never understood, no real love. Then, in our loneliness, we turn to drugs, alcohol, or pornography to numb the pain or to create a new fantasy life. But as our addiction deepens, it causes more loneliness and deeper loneliness because we withdraw further from friends and family out of guilt and shame. We totally isolate ourselves and become self-centered. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 1 says, "A man who isolates himself seeks his own desires and rages against all wise counsel." We rage against friends and family and push them further away, which results in deeper and deeper loneliness. In our loneliness, we doubt that anyone really cares. We doubt whether or not we're even worthy of love. When preachers or other outreach people come around and see us in our addiction, we doubt their message that God cares because we feel alone, forgotten, and forsaken. Irish songwriter and singer Gilbert O'Sullivan made the song Alone Again Naturally in 1972. Listen to the lyrics. "To think that only yesterday I was cheerful, bright, and gay, looking forward to who wouldn't do the role I was about to play. But as if to knock me down, reality came around, and without so much as a mere touch, cut me into little pieces, leaving me to doubt, talk about God and His mercy, who, if He really does exist, why did He desert me? In my hour of need, I truly am indeed alone again, naturally." These lyrics really sum it up. Alone again, naturally. The life of addiction is a life where every day we wake up to the normalcy of loneliness, and we go to sleep with the same thoughts and feelings of rejection, abandonment, and being unloved. Addiction is a life where we can sing alone again, naturally. It becomes totally normal, totally natural to live in the whirlpool of loneliness. And in this snare of addiction, loneliness isn't just a whirlpool, it becomes like a boa constrictor, squeezing the life and the desire to live out of us. But remember, the cure for loneliness is love. Authentic, unconditional love. Many addicts find this love and acceptance in their higher power when they begin recovery. The psalmist cried out to his God as recorded in Psalm 25, verses 16 to 18. "Turn to me and have mercy, for I am alone and in deep distress. My problems go from bad to worse. Oh, save me from them all. Feel my pain and see me in my trouble." Can you hear the agony of the psalmist? Can you hear the agony of the loneliness in addicts? Being alone and in deep distress, crying out for mercy, crying out for anyone to turn to them rather than turning away from them or locking their doors or crossing to the other side of the street to avoid them. Can you hear the pain that their problems go from bad to worse? And in addiction, not only our use of drugs or alcohol or pornography or gambling goes from bad to worse and then even worse, but our consequences, our situation, our problems go from bad to worse every week, every day. Can you hear the cry of the addict saying, "Can you feel my pain? Can you see me in my trouble and feel my pain?" Too often when we look at an addict, we don't see them in their trouble and feel their pain. We look at them with eyes of fear and only see the trouble that the addict might cause us, or the nuisance or the bother or the inconvenience their very presence is in our life or in our neighborhood. But I still, in the midst of all of this situation, want to urge not only those who aren't addicted to see the pain and the trouble of the addicts and to be able to reach into their situation, feeling their pain with them. But I also want to urge all of you caught up in addiction to cry out today to your higher power, to cry out today to the one person who has always loved you. Take whatever steps you can to reestablish relationship. I promise you, as you take those steps, you will find life and the desire to live. You will find that you can begin to live life to the fullest in recovery. I'd like to close with a quote from Mandy Hale, a blogger and author. She wrote, "A season of loneliness and isolation is when the caterpillar gets its wings. Remember that next time you feel alone." Are you ready to get your wings like the caterpillar in its season of isolation and loneliness? Thanks for listening to this episode of the A to D from Addict to Disciple podcast. I hope everyone has been challenged and inspired by today's episode, whether you are in active addiction, in recovery, or the loved one or friend of an addict. New episodes drop every Monday. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions, feel free to follow us and contact me on Instagram at David from A to D, or on our website www.fromatod.org. As always, stay safe and stay strong.